Hey guys, thanks for joining us. We're here at the livegilmer.com studio. So this is the first time we've used it, but we're hoping to bust out some podcasts on a weekly basis coming up soon. So if there's somebody in particular that you think would be good to interview, or maybe like a subject that affects Upshur County that you want us to kind of look into and maybe bring a couple people in that are familiar with it, just leave us a comment. Tell us, who you think might be good for that. But today, what we're doing is we're going to interview all the mayor candidates. We got a lot of great feedback whenever we did the city council a few months back, and so we're bringing it back. I know that there's, anytime there's a race like this and it's contested, there's a lot of strong opinions and whatnot. But I think that, and it's obviously not our intent to get in and endorse a candidate or to anything like that, because the way we look at it at Live Gilmer is that, man, if we've got 3 people that care enough about the county to run for mayor, like, that's a great thing. And I think there's just tons of good momentum happening right now in town. And so what we're trying to do is just harness that and hopefully roll that into the next series of things that are going to be also great for our community. So hope you guys enjoy and tune in for our future podcasts. Thanks. Well, we're here with Tim Marshall, who's actually our current mayor, and he's up for re-election. I appreciate you coming, Tim.
Yes, sir.
I think we did this with the city council, and we got a lot of great feedback from it. So I think, doing it with this, since it's a contested election, just kind of letting everybody, know who they can vote for and kind of where everyone stands on some different, subjects, I think is important just for being an informed voter. So we really appreciate your time and having you here.
Well, I appreciate you having me here. I have been the mayor for about 6 years. I retired. I grew up here, went to high school here, graduated from high school, went to Kilgore Junior College, where somebody had to drive the Rangerettes around, so I had to do that and periodically. And then I was studying pre-engineering.
Okay.
And my brother, who's an engineer, brought home some fluid mechanics books from University of Houston. I decided, nah, that's not what I wanted to do. So I decided I wanted to get into law enforcement, so I went to Untitled Junior College, where they had a junior college program. And from there I went to, I ended up in Huntsville.
Okay.
Huntsville, yeah, Sam Houston State, sure. Because it was one of only 2 places in Texas that you could get a degree in law enforcement and police science. And I have a degree in law enforcement and police science. Worked for the Houston Police Department for 33 years, 1 month and 11 days. And then I retired and came back up here. One of a prominent businessmen here in town asked me to run for mayor. And I grew up with this man, and I said, yeah, right. Why don't I want to run? And then later I was in his office for some other reason, not even related to any city business at all. And he asked me again. He said, he shut the door and said, I want you to run for mayor. And I said, all right, I'll run for mayor. So I went ahead and ran for mayor, and not knowing a whole lot about what was going on. I had a good idea of the function of the mayor, and I beat my opponent approximately 2-1. Now, the form of government we have as mayor, people say, well, you're the mayor. Well, I'm only one wheel in the cog of the city council. The city council is made up of 7 members, of one of which is the mayor, which I am. And so, well, you're the figurehead. Well, if you want to call me that, I kiss the babies. I sign some documents, but I really don't have any power, because under our home rule form of government, we have a strong manager city council form of government. So the people within the town, registered voters, they elect based on the area they live in, and some area wide, they elect representatives and the mayor, and those make up the city council. Now the city council, in turn, they put out for applications for a city manager if they don't already have a city manager. And if they don't have one, they put out applications requirements that they'd like to see, qualifications, and they interview. We did that. We interviewed several applicants, and we try to find the best applicant that fits our form of government and has the experience to keep us going the way we want to go.
Sure.
Now, our former city manager, Jeff Ellington, he's passed away now. He was a very, very good with money, very good city manager with money. Now, some people Didn't appreciate maybe his personality, but he was his own kind of a man. He didn't live here. He did maintain a residence here, but he actually had another home in Center. So he did an excellent job with the money, and he got our money back from. We were on the edges of bankruptcy when he got here.
I got you.
And he got us out of the hole and got us to where we are now, where we're starting to do things within the city. The city manager we have here now, Mr. Greg Hudson, he lives in Arlington. That's where his wife lives, in Arlington. He actually has a home or a residence here in Gilmer. His driver's license is in Gilmer. His voter registration is here in Gilmer. The only difference is he lives here 5 days a week. 2 days a week he goes to Arlington to see his wife. So if that, and I don't see if that's an issue. That's the same way our other previous city manager that we had for 11 years or 12 years. He did the same thing. He lived here most of the week, and then on the weekends he was gone. But yet, in one sense, that takes him away from the city, in that he can see what's going on and not being everybody. Well, he's not from here. Well, not everybody is from Gilmer. You don't have to be from Gilmer to do a good job. But again, I could keep on going and over, and I'll let you ask me a question.
Yeah, no, you're fine. And that's kind of one thing. I'd interviewed Steve a little bit before you got here, and he was kind of talking a little bit about the different forms of government, you know, and stuff. And so right now we're kind of a city manager, I guess, heavy form of government, more or less. And
that's great.
Is that kind of the way you would like to see it maintain, or do you think that there would be any benefit to moving back to like a city council, more of a city council run form of government, or does it really make no difference?
Essentially what it would be more of a mayor council city form of government, where the mayor would actually have more power, or as much power as the city council, and then dictate more to the city manager. And I feel like if I was the mayor, a strong mayor, I have no idea how to do some of these things that the city manager is doing, because there's certain rules and regulations and things he has to follow, and reports he has to make out, things he generates working with banks and all this. And I don't have that familiarity. I'm just your common man.
Right.
I try to represent all the people as taxpayers, whether you live in this part of town, that part of town, this part of town. As far as I'm concerned, you're all taxpayers.
Right.
When we have roads to repair, we have a city engineer that goes out and he looks at the roads. I don't look at them. Right. He looks at the roads. And we were seal coating one year, seal coating the roads. Seal coating the roads is just a temporary fix to make them until we can do something better with them later.
Sure.
And he went and looked at the roads to be seal coated. One of the worst roads in town was Park Street. And my sister, I think she's probably a little older than me, she and my older brother rode their tricycles on Park Street when it was paved. And that was 70 years ago, probably.
Right.
And it hasn't been fixed since then, just the potholes been repaired. It was terrible shape, everybody knows that. Well, when we seal coated the streets, we didn't seal coat that street. So why didn't you do that? Well, because our engineer had told us that street is not a salvageable street. It's terrible. So we just skipped it.
Right.
But now what do? We came back and totally rebuilt that street.
Right.
And we've done that. We rebuilt Montgomery Street. We built Cypress Street. We rebuilt Robert Street. We're currently in the process of doing some stuff in the Mitchell addition, some of the streets there. So where do we get this money from? Well, we got money from Sanitation Solutions. What's Sanitation Solutions? That's Waste Management, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
And what they would do is they would kind of credit us money, give us money for damage to the streets they may cause with their heavy equipment as they picked up garbage and everything like that. It was just kind of supplement the damage they did. Sure. Well, we put that money in the general fund, and it went wherever the general fund money goes. Well, our city manager, he said, no, they're giving us that money because they're tearing the streets up. We're going to put that money in a dedicated street fund, and then we're going to spend that for streets because it's dedicated street money.
Sure.
So that's what we're doing now. That's how we're able to do some of these streets. Now, granted, some of these bigger projects, Cypress Street, some of those were the grant money. And we're fixing to do another grant. We're looking at doing a grant that's going to start from the Methodist Church and go all the way down to Hickson Lumber, bottom of the hill down there where Hickson Lumber starts.
Gotcha.
That's what we're going to do with some grant money that we're going to get.
I gotcha.
And it has to be used a certain way. It has to be used whether it's a low to moderate income area, and there's certain qualifications. That's why we're doing that particular street.
Right.
It's like, we didn't do that street because this person lives there. I didn't do that street because this person lives there. We did this street because it fit the criteria for the money that we could get to do that street with.
I gotcha. So is there kind of like so does the engineer have kind of a general overall plan of kind of like streets that they want to hit next, or is it kind of based on how money's coming in for some of these grants and stuff like that?
That's exactly the way it is. What we've done, we've looked at the streets, and we know the streets that need repairing. But some of the streets, you have to look at, people say, well, why didn't you go this extra 15 feet down this street? Well, I can't tell you the numbers, but there is a cost effect. Every foot of asphalt costs that much more money. It's not cheap. Right. So we have to decide how far we can go with each of these streets in order to make our money go the best use of our money. And then we'll say, well, can we do a little bit more? And if we have that money in the dedicated fund, and the engineer looks at it and says, yeah, we can, or he says, no, we can't, but we can do a little over here maybe.
Gotcha.
So that's what we're trying to do. I can't tell you that this street's next, and then 4 streets later, this street will be next, and 3 streets later, this street will be next. It just depends on our funding and what the engineers see and what we look at as far as the damage that's been done that needs to be repaired. That's
sure.
why some of those over there in the Mitchell edition that hadn't been done in forever, we're doing those. And we're going to get down into Patterson edition. There's places in there that have been, 35, I don't know how old that Patterson edition is, 40 years, let's see, 50 years old, over 50 years old, I guess. There's places in that Patterson edition that need redoing.
Right.
But there's also places in the northern part of town and in the southern part of town, and we've done some work down there in the southern part of town and the northern part of town also. It's because they're taxpayers like everybody else is.
Right.
Also, we try to get some of the primary arteries if we can.
Right.
And like some of those streets, Walnut, Mitchell, some of those aren't primary arteries. Those are just small streets. Montgomery Street's a primary artery, so we try to do that. But the primary artery costs a lot of money.
Right.
And these other streets don't cost quite as much money. Well, it's kind of like buying a house or something. You just say, I'm going to save up until I got enough to pay cash for that house.
Right.
Well,
right.
Wouldn't it be simpler if you just borrowed some money or something, or they paid as you kind of pay as you go? That'd be kind of nice, so you wouldn't have this indebtedness on. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to pay as we go to do our street.
Sure, that makes sense.
Now, one of the things we're doing that I'd like to touch base on is people say, well, we raised the taxes. I said, we did? I didn't know that. So I went and I looked at city council minutes. I said, well, we raised the rate. What happened is the value of all this stuff around town is, how do we get the value of all this stuff around town? You know?
How do we get the value from like the appraisal districts?
There you go.
Yeah,
appraisal district. Do we have anything to do with that? No. See, they don't have anything to do with appraisal. Then what do they do with that information? Send it to the tax office, because they handle all the taxes for the school.
Right.
So what do? They look at it and say, based on these evaluations and based on the tax rate we can see here, you're going to be short on your money. So we have to decide, what are we going to do? Are we going to raise the tax rate? Are we going to keep it the same? Or are we going to lower it? I say, well, what we're going to do now is we're required to keep a balanced budget. And one of the things that they say that we don't want to do is we don't want to generate more monies.
Right.
Well, how do we generate the same amount of money if our value's gone down? Well, we have to raise the rate per $100. So we did that. We raised the rate. You know how much we raised that rate?
How much?
What do you think?
I have no idea.
Per $100. How much do you think?
I couldn't even guess.
Half a cent. 1/2 of a penny for $100 of valuation. And that's just nothing. Well, why don't we get these people these department heads to cut their budgets a little bit, Well, for one thing, we're working on a shoestring budget right now. And if we cut their budget, then where's our primary money spent? Where's generally do you spend your primary money in a business, any business? Personnel.
Yeah.
So you got city personnel. Who's that? Well, that's public works, police department, fire department, public safety. So you want to cut money from public safety? I don't want to do that.
Right.
So where else could you get it from? I tell you what, they pay the mayor and the city councilman a little stipend amount of money. Keep it. Don't even pay us money. That's money right there. Let's don't pay these. Let's take that dedicated money off of the streets and let's do something else with it, Well, we could do that.
Right.
No, we don't want to do that. Okay, what about what about the park situation? Well, tell you what we're going to do. You mean this lake we got out here? You know what it's good for right now? Fishing. Good fishing lake. Good fishing.
Right.
But we can't, it belongs to Gilmer, the city of Gilmer. If you live in town, your taxes go to pay for that. Not your property taxes, but your some of your taxes that we get back from the state. When you buy something, then you pay a tax on it. That tax money goes to the state. The state turns around and gives a percentage of that back to the cities for use for economic development and things like that. Help people like you to develop stuff like this. You go come get money from us. Where does our money go? 85% of our money goes to pay the debt on that lake. 85%. The other 15% is administrative money. I mean, we can't do anything with 15% of what's left. So what are we doing now? Well, that lake will not be paid off until 2033. So what we're in the process of doing right now is we're refinancing the bonds on that lake. And so what we're going to do is we've got some money that we set aside. We're going to put that money towards those bonds to bring them down a little bit. They're going to refinance them at a lower rate. That lower rate will still be 2033 before it's paid for, but it will allow us to have more money. For what? To pay on bonds for the park, the Embry Park, Abney Park, Roosevelt Park. Well, how much money are we talking about? $7.8 million. Then, and the taxpayers going to pay it? No. You misunderstand me. The taxpayers aren't going to pay anything for that. It's going to be bonds that are going to be paid for with what we get left over from paying on that lake out there.
Gotcha.
That's where that money's going to come from. Why don't we sell the water out of the lake? Well, we have to have a customer for one thing. Why don't we use the water out of the lake? Well, because we use groundwater. We pump water out of the ground and shoot a chlorine in it, and you drink it. If we pumped it out of the lake, what would you have to do to it? Well, you have to put it into, have a treatment plant and all this infrastructure, and have to have people working and everything. Then you have to have a pipeline to pipe it up here and everything. Then we'd have to raise your water rates to pay for it, for all that infrastructure that we got, see. So, but is it something good? Oh, you betcha it is. One of these days, that's gold sitting out there. It is gold sitting out there. But it's just something that can't happen overnight. It's just like these parks. We have a master park plan that includes Roosevelt, Abbey, and the Embry Park. Are we doing anything? Yeah, we are. The wheels of bureaucratic wheels turn. They just don't turn as fast as you or I would like them to happen.
Right.
So the money will be there. We're going to start working on it. We're going to essentially first work on Abney and Roosevelt. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's because that's in the best part of town. No, not necessarily. Those are little small parks. We're going to spend money there to get them operating while we're accumulating more of this money to put on this $7.8 million that we're going to have to do to make the Embry Park what it is today.
And I had heard, I'm not sure, I guess maybe in the next couple of years, maybe it'll be back to the Embry Park. Is that kind of is there a time frame for that?
There's not really a time frame on it. As soon as we refinance these bonds and have the money start coming in, we're going to start working on it. But, well, the first thing you do is dirt work. Well, how much did the dirt work cost for that Embry building out there? I've heard upwards of $600,000 for the dirt work. I mean, I don't know, but that dirt work's expensive. So that's one of the things you got to start doing. You can't snap your fingers and have a ballpark out there overnight. It takes a while, and it's real expensive to do. But we want to do that. We want to have some of the things that bring people into this town are education, good school, good football teams. We have good football teams. We've got a great school. We finally passed that. Administration bills have been redone. All our scholastic stuff is number one, I think. And what else do you need? Well, you want parks and you want places for your kids to go play. We don't have that now. Right. We're working on that. You don't have a hospital. We're working on that right now. If there's things going on behind the scenes through through other organizations that are trying to get a health-run organization here. And some of those things are priority, so you can't really talk a lot about how it's going to happen, but it is happening. So what about the airport out there? There's things going on at the airport, big things going on at the airport that I'm not privy to say what's going on. Right. There's things going on out there. What about that airport? How much do you spend at that airport?
How much? I personally, rarely do I go out there.
Okay, how much of your tax money goes out there?
I have no idea.
Absolutely none. That airport is run by hangar rental money, and everything that's done out there is either what they call ramp money, which comes from the state of Texas, or it comes from the rental from rent out the land space.
Right,
if you own a
right.
hangar out there, you may own the building, but you don't own the land it's sitting on. You have to lease that from the city. So that's where that money comes from. And so that it's self-sustaining out there. And we're doing things out there at the airport. We've gotten some more land from that the economic development. People are helping us to move some land around and do a few things. Again, I can't go further into what's going on, but there are things that are happening. It's not like we're standing still. Things are going on.
Sure.
And another thing about this mayor business, you're part of the city council, and I don't care if you're the mayor or you're a at-large or who you are. It's nice to know what's going on with the city.
Right.
And to be real honest with you, it takes you a couple of years just to figure out what's going on.
Sure.
Well, I feel like that out of the candidates that are running, that I've been there 6 years and I've got a fair grasp on what's going on and how it works. I understand that it turns slow and things you want done don't get done very fast sometimes. But again, I'm out there. If you look on the website, Gilmer's website, you see a picture of me in a suit, which you don't see me in a suit very often. But under my picture is a phone number.
Right.
That's my home phone number. It's in the phone book. I'm the only Tim Marshall in the phone book. Call me if you got a question. People, they always, you can't get any answers out of anybody. Nobody will call you back. Well, nobody ever called me.
Right.
Because I will look into it. I'll get you an answer.
Sure.
You don't like it? Sorry. But I'll get you the answer.
Sure.
Sometimes I don't like telling you that, but that's what I'm going to do.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that's kind of part of what we're trying to do here is just make everyone a little more approachable, and I think, you kind of hit on, some different things, the lakes, the parks, the airport and stuff. And I think that's something, we're wanting to do kind of a weekly podcast where we discuss different things, and I think that's kind of, just giving people that background information and letting them decide for themselves, like, hey, that makes sense, or something's fishy there, or whatever. I think as we go, I think we're going to hit like specific topics like that, and just kind of go into it a little bit.
It's one thing a lot of people are concerned about too, and rightfully so. When our latest city manager got here about 4.5 years ago, we were having this grass 10 feet tall and weeds and junk cars, like you couldn't see the junk cars for the weeds. So we got a code enforcement officer in here, and she since left to go to another job, but she got really on to the weeds and stuff like that. So we got the mowing part of it, we got that taken care of pretty much. What about the junk cars and everything? We're working on that to take care of. We don't have, so other cities have gotten in trouble by just going and taking stuff off people's property. You can't do that. You have to do it. You have to have the legal means and the ordinances in place. And our ordinances are kind of mishmashed around. This means this and this means that. And we need to have a comprehensive ordinance that we can go in and say, this is what it says and this is what you have to do. These are the penalties. And if you don't do this, then the city can come in and do it. But we don't have it set down like that. Right. And if you don't have it set down like that, then just open yourself to suits and everything else.
Sure.
I don't like it any more than the next guy. Right. Somebody says, well, that house looks awful over there. Yeah, it's pink, and I don't particularly like pink, but I don't have any control over that. People say, well, what about these murals they got downtown? I said, well, that's, like it or not, that's not, if the owners of the building can do what they want to do with the murals. Well, they painted over a mural. Who did that? I said, I don't know. Right. I can try to find out who did that. I think the Harmony School people did that.
Yeah. The art teacher out there, she did that.
And I have no idea about, was there any communications about, I don't know. It's not part of what I do. That's private property, and that's the way people do things. And that's another thing, that what you don't like, I may not like.
Right.
But I understand what you can do about some things and what you can't do about some things. It's not, this guy smells because he don't take a bath. Well, I can't help that,
Right.
I do. It's the way people are. Just,
right. For sure. Yeah, I think that's definitely something that, just getting into some of those details as time goes on and stuff with our podcast, just kind of making people aware of what's going on and how things are set and stuff like that, I think will help. Just the education piece of that will help,
Well, I think that's the biggest thing. Like I said, you go on Facebook or something like that, or hear a rumor and it's, I heard this, and then it just snowballs into something that's not. Or you read something, an editorial, somebody writes a letter to the editor, say, and you read the letter to the editor, boy, it's terrible. Well, that was a letter to the editor. Now, whether it was true in fact, I'll find out, or if it has to do some with the city, but I didn't write that letter to the editor. That's one person's opinion. And that's the way a lot of things are with people. People will see high grass and potholes and junk cars, but they won't see this Harrison Street pumping station right down here, right over here, close to the Crowley Funeral Home over there. People say, where do you get your water from? You know where we get our water from? You know where we get our water from?
I mean, I know that the water's kind of pumped up on the hill out here outside of town, and then it just kind of, that's where all the pressure comes from.
That's right. What we do, we pump it from about 7 different wells. We pump it to Harrison Street, to those tanks over there. From there, we pump it up to Simpson Mountain. Big old monument up on Simpson Mountain. You've probably never seen it. I think it's a 1 million gallon concrete tank in the ground up there. It takes 12 hours to drain it if we have an outage or whatever. And gravity flows down here to Gilmer, so we have such good water pressure. Right. You better put a whole house water regulator on, or you're gonna blow your water hoses up.
I've experienced some of that, yeah.
Which I put one on my house. And but what happens if we lose? What happens if we lose power here in Gilmer? We got generators, right? Wrong. We don't have a generator over there for that. Why don't we? Well, because it costs about $250,000. Okay. Are we gonna get one? You betcha. How are we gonna get one? Through the CARES Act. I'll be wrong if I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but it has to do with the coronavirus.
Right.
So as we spend money, as the city spends money, they apply to the federal government for reimbursement of these monies for safety equipment, and we've gotten some things to decontaminate City Hall and decontaminate the police cars and different things like that, the spray rigs and stuff like that, and other things, masks, gloves or whatever it is, and other things, overtime. So we put in for that, and we get reimbursed for that. Well, we've had the money to cover all that, but they've reimbursed us this money. So what are we going to do with it? Put it in the general fund? No. We're going to dedicate towards getting a generator for that water system over there. That's one of my primary concerns, and the city managers. Because if we lose power, for like they did around here, Tyler lost power, and they couldn't get any water in Tyler. I don't know if you saw any pictures on the TV about that. Showed their water plant there. Well, what was right in front of their water plant? Huge generator. Didn't work because nobody had maintained the thing. See? But they had a generator for what good it did. But we want to have a generator. We want to have a maintenance schedule and keep that up. We've got a sewer plant. One sewer plant. Do you know where it is? Have no idea, do you? 95% of the people don't know where it is. It's in a pasture there off of Coffeyville Road. Go down Coffeyville Road, turn in that nice subdivision back in there. Yeah. Go back there and you'll find a gate back and go through that gate, drive down through the pasture there, buy an old oil well. And there's a big sewer plant back in there. One of our city employees maintains that sewer plant. It has 6 aerators. Well, I call them aerators. I'm not sure what they're called. But they're aerators to chew up the junk and everything. Right. At one time, we were down to 1 working. So, well, let's fix it. Well, we will, but it costs a lot of money to fix those things like that. Well, how come you hadn't fit that pothole or fix that street? Well, that's dedicated money. Not potholes, but to repair street is dedicated money. Why have you taken money from someone? Where do you want us to take the money from to do that? We have to try to figure out. We can't just reduce everybody's budget. So we have what's called a contingency. If your air conditioner goes out on your house, do you go borrow the money? Probably not. You probably have a little money somewhere in savings or somewhere. That's contingency money. Not dedicated to anything. You don't want to spend it for that, but you have to. So what do we got to do? Well, if it's under $50,000, we don't have to go out for contract to have it done. But we've got to get a crane from probably Longview to lift these things out of there. Then we have a company out of Mississippi, that specialized company, I think, for those things I'm calling aerators. Right. And they're going to put us in a new one, and we're going to fix the ones that we've got while we've got the crane here. So we'll hopefully have 6 of them operating again, and we can afford to lose 1 or 2 at a time. But now I got ourselves down to 1, and the city employees went out there and got us back up to operating, I think about 2 or 3 right now, but we're still down on that. So that's money we're spending, bunches of money on it. People don't see that. Right. You see it when you flush your commode, it doesn't work. That's when you see things like that. Turn the water faucet on, nothing comes out. Why is my water brown? Because the water pipe broke down there, and we repaired it, and it's kind of churned up some stuff that was existing in the pipes. It's all right to drink. It just looks funny, you know.
But
during this outage we had with all the power outage, not power outage, but the snow we had, we didn't have power outage here. That's a whole nother story about the power grid that we're not part of. But did we have any damage to anything? Yeah, I know we had one pipe that broke. I was on Azalea Street, on Frost Street, north of Madeline Street, and the city employees went in there when it was freezing cold and got soaking wet and worked on that thing and repaired it hot. In other words, we didn't shut the pump off. Why didn't we shut the pump off? So they wouldn't get cold and wet and fix that thing. Because if we shut the well pump off and continued to drip your faucets and run your faucets so stuff wouldn't freeze, we'd start depleting the supply in this main tank up there, and then we'd be behind the curve trying to keep it filled back up. So we wanted to stay up with it, so we elected not to cut the pump off. Now that's at the city employees had to stay in that cold water and fix that thing, but they did that because we have dedicated employees. That's what they did.
Yeah, and they did an excellent job. I mean, from everything I could tell, they did an excellent job keeping everybody. Everybody had piops bust. I know those guys were working around the clock.
And that was the other thing. I've had a lady call me one day, and I think it's the 23rd of the month we cut water off, and so the employees went out there and they cut her water off. She lives outside the city limits, but they cut her water off. And I forget if it's a holiday weekend or what it was. And she called me, and she was mad because she had called the police and they wouldn't tell her anything, and she didn't have a number for the water department. And it was after hours and all stuff. So finally, I called the city employee that was on call that night. And I said, "Go turn her water back on." I said, "I believed everything she's telling me." Check got lost in the mail, one of those deals where she'd put in that night deposit. And I told her, I said, "Tomorrow morning, you come down to City Hall and explain to the city manager why your water was cut off and how it got turned back on." And she did. And it was a mistake. She never had been on a cutoff list before. It just happens, Things like that happen. But back to the freeze and everything, we had over 100 properties that people called to get us to shut the water off to their house because they had pipes broken in their house. Now, according to the way the code is and everything, you're supposed to have a cutoff on your side of the meter. A majority of people around here in town don't have a cutoff on their side of the meter. They rely on cutting the meter off. Where's the meter? I don't know. The city knows where it is. No, we don't. It's under 6 inches of snow. I've got to go out there and try to find this meter, dig it up, and then turn it off. And in the meantime, your house is being flooded. Oh, I'm sorry, but I'm doing the best I can do, and you're 2 more houses down the line before I can get to you because we have a limited number of resources. That's just part of the way it works. It's not a perfect world, but we're doing the best we can.
Sure, absolutely. Well, so we've talked about several different things, but is there anything in particular that we hadn't really discussed that you'd like to, if you get reelected, that you'd like to kind of go after next? Or?
Well, one of the primary things that we're going to go after next is we're going to go after this ordinance again that put it a good ordinance with some teeth in it to go after junk cars and stuff like that. And you know yourself that you can drive around town and see places that you don't want to live next to because it's got junk cars and everything. Well, we got ordinances against vermin or mice, rats coming here and this and that, and but you can't. It's not a comprehensive ordinance that addresses a lot of different things, and we have to do it a certain way, and it has to be reviewed and make sure we may have to get an ordinance from Arlington. Oh, that's where the city manager's from. Well, maybe they've got a good ordinance that works there. I don't want this place to be, I don't want to live in a homeowners association either. I don't want you to tell me what color to paint my house, but I would sure like for you to keep reasonably a decent place. If you want a place that's all junked up and just nobody cares, we'll move out in the county. But we have certain rules and regulations here, not like a homeowners association, but we do have some rules and regulations that we would like for you to abide by if you're going to live within the city limits. If you don't want to abide by those, I don't have any problem with that, but you don't need to live in the city limits. We've enacted an ordinance about mini homes. One of the things that happened around here in Gilmer that it seems to me like is I drive around on the weekend and here a house got moved in. Well, how'd that happen? How'd that house get moved in? Did they have a permit? Did they have permission? Is it a lot there? No, they just decided they'd move in, or a trailer house. They're going to move a trailer house. You can't have a trailer house in here. There's some of their grandfathers, but there's a lot of, I'm going to do this and ask permission later. You can't do that. There's rules and regulations, and you really need to follow the rules and regulations as they're set down in ordinance or city charter or whatever they're in, and do things the way they're supposed to be done, do the right thing. Get your permits and have them done, and don't do something and come say, well, I want to do this. Well, it's a little late now. You've already, if you haven't given us you want to build a building. You want to build this big building. Will you have any plans? Well, no. I ain't in my head.